Well, hey everyone, let me turn the music down. Hold on a second. Hi, how are you guys doing? It is Christy. Am I a minute late? Or no, I'm right on time. Perfect. I had done I heard the music transition and I wasn't quite ready. It was in the middle of a sip of my coffee. I was like, let's go live, because that's the perfect time to do it. Hey guys, it is Sunday. It is Christy here, so it's Weekend Winters. And apologies. Actually, I would love some feedback from the chat on this. Because the YouTube, okay, first, apologies for the confusion, the YouTube scheduling. It shows you a default, and I picked, like 15 minutes from now, but somehow between setting the time and saving the time, it messes it up almost every single time. And if I don't remember to go back and reset the time from the original time that I set it for, that it won't, it'll just pick a random time. I hate it. Anyway, that's not your problem. That's my problem, and honestly it's a first world problem, so let's just move on. So first of all, one quick question I had for you guys, which is if you have a recommendation or a preference as to how you would like to see the show set up. So let me just explain the problem I'm seeing. I see people in the chat going, oh, we know what time the show is, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys coming by every Sunday and spending some time with me. But what would be convenient if you have a preference for when I should schedule these events? Because I know if I schedule, like for instance, if I schedule next week's show immediately after this week's show, it will show up as an event in your feed now. But I don't think it'll show up in a week's time. If I do it the day before, then sometimes I forget. So I'm not entirely sure how to kind of optimize scheduling the show, because YouTube is just awful. It doesn't give you a calendar where you could have 3 shows scheduled or something. They just randomly show up in your feed. So I just wanted to see if there's any way you guys use it, or do you just know what time it is so you show up to the channel? I'm trying to find out what is best for you guys so that you don't inadvertently miss it or whatever. It doesn't clog up your feed. And also, I should announce there will be a happy hour tonight. Kevin and I are going, I don't know what we're going to talk about exactly. There's a couple of things we could possibly discuss. But we'll be doing a happy hour at the usual time, so you get to see me twice this Sunday. And if you watched the D&D game, you got to see me last night, and then I think I had a night off before. The night before that was another happy hour. Anyway, let's talk about some stuff. Okay, so what I had thought to do for this show was, one, I was kind of empty news-wise, and I wanted to move off of some of the stuff and then we've been discussing before. So I had 2 ideas. One's more fun, which is let's make fun of a PragerU video, because that's always easy and fun. Well, it's not always fun. It is frustrating. So for those of you who like, that sort of frustration and debunking crap, I thought we could do that. The other thing I wanted to do just very quickly, and there's not any particular screen I need to show for this, is I was reflecting this morning on this trope people use, especially on Twitter, but I'm sure other places as well, for the American election, that somehow 2020 is a repeat of 2016, and that the Democrats are just going to lose to Trump in the same way again. Oh, sorry, I'm moving my camera around a little bit. I love my laptop, but it has this hypersensitive fan thing. I don't know if you can hear that. No, actually, I might have noise gated my mic appropriately so you can't hear the fan of my computer. But if it just gets a little bit warm, it just starts like, oh, fan itself. Like you touch it and it's barely even like warm to the skin. And yet my laptop is like, I'm so hot, I have to turn a fan on. So, and I find that background noise, like I'm worried about interference. Anyway, getting back, Sunday stream of consciousness of Christy. I guess what I could do is show you guys though, on the pop-up chat, so that way at least you can participate. You don't just have to look at my face on the screen. Why 2016 is going to be can't really tell us anything about 2020. And the more that we move into this pandemic, the more I think this is actually something that we have to think about a little bit. So here is why just some random thoughts on why increasingly any comparison between 2016 and 2020 is completely invalid. So first I wanted to say a little bit of hi, and Striped Mongoose I see, DNFN is in the chat, Ramona, hello, Lucky Wanderer, you're gonna miss it, oh, it's okay, you can come back, Lucky, we'll check you out later. No preference, I know when it is, if I forget it's because I'm inebriated. Well, fair enough. It's 6 a.m., which is fine for me since I'm usually up. Okay, God, what are you doing up at that hour? That's about, like, for me, like, just when I'm getting to sleep. No, not. I use the reminder function. Okay, all right, well, you guys seem set. All right. Then maybe what I will do is I will make an effort every week after the show to schedule the next one. And that way, if I am reliable, then you can also set any reminders, or at least it will have already been set up, and I'll double check the times before we go. Okay, getting back to 2016 versus 2020. So, I mean, in many ways, comparing presidential election years is always a little bit, there's each one is unique. Each one is like a fingerprint or a snowflake. They all have their own particulars that have to be taken into account. And generally, what has been a truism of American presidential elections, and I'm not saying that this won't be, but it's been a truism of American general elections that the economy is the best predictor, absolutely the best predictor of what will happen in a presidential election. That is to say, if there is an incumbent who is overseeing a good economy, I can't think of a president who was booted out during a non-recession time when he was running for president. On the other hand, when you have a very bad economy, it's much more difficult for an incumbent to get reelected. Now, does that mean it's impossible for an incumbent to get booted out during an economically prosperous time? No, absolutely not. But we do find that for people who aren't driven by partisan interests, how the economy is doing, even though the president has very little control directly over the economy, is an excellent how people feel about the economy is an excellent predictor of how the election will turn out. And I'm not saying that won't be the case here in 2020, but 2020 is, kind of going to have to be set aside. We've never had an election during a pandemic before. I mean, well, no, that's not entirely true. In this century, in modern history. Not since the 1918, and women got the vote in 1919. So we don't really have, and we didn't have polling, really. We didn't have polling. I think that came about in the 1940s. So we have no real ways of comparing the last time we had a pandemic. And one of the tropes I've seen a lot before was, people bemoaning, oh no, 26 is going to be just like 2020. So not going to be the case. All right. So let's go over all the factors that are completely different this time. First, on the Democratic side. One, we don't have a woman running. And we've seen already that Joe Biden has benefited from an increased amount of support from rural whites and whites, I think men in general, because I'm just going to say it, there's less, it's a misogyny problem. I think there's a couple of points of misogyny that benefited Bernie in the primary and benefited perhaps Trump, But, it wasn't just misogyny, to be fair. It was also Hillary Clinton had sustained almost 2 years of a nonstop negative campaign against her. When she first entered the race as Secretary of State, her approval ratings or her positives were like in the 60s. And that was like 2 years out or whatever. She was still ranking pretty highly. And then the Republicans did Benghazi, dragged her up in front of the committee, but her emails, and they had a clear airways. They had a sustained amount of time in order to really develop a solid alternative narrative that appealed to independent voters, swing voters, disaffected Democrats. Therefore, a lot of that also accrued to Trump because he just didn't have a record at that point in time. He was, known as a failed businessman. Other people knew him as a successful reality TV star, and he just had no baggage. He held no elected office. He had no accountability for any policies, ideas he'd ever tried to implement. Whereas, Clinton was basically blamed for a lot of things that her husband did, even though she was first lady at the time. So there was, and then there was also the Iraq war vote, if you want to go back to that. Although I have a case to be made that, people were being lied to. And also, having lived through the Iraq war, I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. And it was even, it was more acceptable to be anti-war at that point in time, but it was difficult to be anti-war in a rural place like, the Midwest, where post 9/11 people were just, Anyway, moving on. And so in that way, Joe Biden doesn't suffer from that downward pull. Now, we saw that Trump tried to recreate that narrative. He basically got impeached over trying to create this Ukraine narrative, which, if you think about it now, that Ukraine narrative is gone. Nobody talks about the Ukraine anymore. Like, the whole impeachment thing is now kind of what we associate with that scandal rather than Joe Biden or Hunter Biden. So Trump doesn't have, a woman that might pull some misogyny points. 2, he does not have 24 months of taxpayer-funded negative advertising against his opponent, Joe Biden, even though he tried to do that through Congress and the Hunter Biden thing. And what was the other thing I just mentioned? Oh, yeah, just the airways. 3, Trump wanted to dominate and control the narratives around Biden, but all of that space was first taken up by impeachment. So it wasn't so Trump became the focus of that earlier this year, leading up to in the primary. And then, hey, Lonely Wolf, good to see you. And then after that, it went basically from impeachment to the pandemic. And what Trump hasn't been able to get that he had last time was an ability to talk about what he wanted to talk about, to try to set the agenda, to try to use his rallies and his PR and his tweets in order to just take up all of the oxygen in the room. And right now, coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, is what's taking up the oxygen in the room. It's forcing him to talk about that and not his opponent. So 2020 is looking very different from 2016 just on those elements that I've gone over already. Then you think about the whole thing about the pandemic means that the pandemic is going to be, because of the way Trump has handled it, it is going to be the thing that dominates the discussion of the summer and up into the fall. But you just won't be able to get away from coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, I should say. Coronavirus, getting real. Sorry, little Cardi B song. Anyway, the coronavirus element in the impact on the economy, on restrictions on hotspots, on questioning whether or not there was sufficient lockdown, all of that stuff is just going to continue to frame the discussion. And then when it's not about the mishandling of the coronavirus and the pandemic, you're going to have the economic fallout. And I was absolutely stunned yesterday. I guess I can pull it up because it's not that hard to look up, even though I don't like typing in public, but I like to have my stuff prepared. I don't like making typos. That's really what it comes down to. All right. We learned that U.S. unemployment right. Okay, yeah, well, you can see I did the search yesterday. Okay, I think I was comparing Moody's, because I want a like-for-like source, you know, so they show it in the same way, they show it the same metrics, so you can compare. So in the United States, in 1 month's time, unemployment went from, now, 3.5 in February to 4.4 in March to 14.7 in April. As people are saying, these are numbers not seen since the Great Depression. And one of the things about American media is that it just lives in a bubble. Germany. Unemployment rate. I'll just here replace this with Moody. Not MIDI. This is why I don't like to do typing in public. All right. Okay. I was curious because I'm watching this and I know you guys can already see. That is Depression era unemployment levels that we are approaching. And April, it wasn't even like the full scope of it from my understanding. The numbers in May will be even worse. I was like, how do other countries compare on this? How does the US compare to other countries? Now let's look at this. Germany's unemployment rate. This is super steady, ridiculously. 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. February, 5%. March, 5%. April, 5.8%. How is, like, Trump, I mean, that's not something that gets covered, I don't think, in a lot of Europe and American media, but 5.8% unemployment in Germany, 14.9% unemployment, 14.7% unemployment in the US. How can you turn to anyone and say America is doing the best job of this? You're seeing mass economic devastation, if I'm honest. And then, again, to show Trump's incompetence, Trump by 3 something like billion farm food supply. Supply. Is that pretty close? 2 P's. Yes. So again, this is basic competence. This is basic how to protect your country 101. Trump has started in May to organize protection of the food supply. I hate this. All right, hold on. I've got all these places like police you. All right, refresh. Well, you want to make money, which is like fair enough, but grr. I don't want your stupid pop-ups. Anyway, I guess that's a trade-off. Yeah, there are already farmers who have been having to dump milk because you can't just hand out raw milk to people. You have to pasteurize milk. And their customers were school districts that closed, or other manufacturer, like whatever else, centers that closed, and they had no way of redirecting their products anywhere. This was entirely foreseeable. And Trump basically let these farmers and manufacturers and truck drivers, anyone else who works in the supply chain, to spend weeks just as absorbing losses, because he hadn't the foresight in March, even at the end of March, to think about protecting the food supply chain. Why do Americans need the food supply chain protected in ways that I don't see them struggling in any other country in the world? Well, it's because, there's no furlough program. There's no way for workers to get state subsidies for being off work as Americans unless you're fired. The only way to get unemployment insurance is to be unemployed. Whereas in the European system, people can they can have their hours reduced from their employer and the government tops it up, or there's some sort of way that the government supports businesses in paying people to not work the number of hours that they have to work because there isn't the work to be done, but they don't actually lose their jobs. They don't disconnect from their employers. And in America, it's so disruptive because first you have to get people laid off or fired. So they move from employment off of employment, and then they have to apply for unemployment insurance. So they have to make an application, which was the system was flooded, and then it has to be processed, and then they have to wait for their first check. In the meantime, their food, like they're worried about their well-being. They're worried about preserving. It's rational, right? If you have no job and you're waiting for your unemployment insurance check to come through, you're not going to go out and just spend cash willy-nilly. You want to look at preserving whatever you have on hand for as long as possible. And so people turn to food banks instead of grocery stores, which created further disruption in the food chain. And food security is like a massive deal. And the fact that it's taken Trump until early May to think about protecting the food chain, just again, this food supply chain, just reminds you how incompetent and dangerous he is. So, it writes here, the U.S. will start rolling out a program to purchase $3 billion of dairy and meat and produce from farmers, ranchers early next week. As the pandemic disrupts supply chains around the country, farmers have been forced to destroy their crops, dump milk, and throw out perishable items that can't be stored. Prices and demand for agricultural products have plummeted during the national lockdown, and farmers have been left with an oversupply of food they can't sell. It's just completely, it's like criminal incompetence. It is criminal incompetence that the Secretary of Agriculture, or the AgSec, wasn't already creating a plan for this back in late March and early April, at least. So, massive unemployment, a disruption to the food chain, the fact that they've had complete incompetence in the Trump administration with handing out these business loans that have been going to rich companies that don't need it. Meanwhile, minority businesses in particular and small businesses can't get access to these payment protection program monies to help their employees get over that breach, and they're going under. So Trump has managed to screw this up so badly in ways that we haven't quite felt the effects of it. So you can't compare 2020 to 2016. Another massive difference between 2020 and 2016 is the fact that the Democrats have united already by April. If you remember 2016, and I'm sure you do, that primary contest got dragged out till the convention. And it was nasty, and it was angry, and people were fighting, and people were just, there were conspiracy theories about the DNC, and there was all this sort of stuff alleged back and forth, and people were getting booed at the convention, and it was just a very divisive situation for Clinton to try to then bring that together, and she had less time than Biden does. Biden, basically, it's a general election now in April instead of in August or in July. So he's got, he won't be taking, other than people who just can't get over the fact that Joe Biden won and want to destroy our candidate no matter what, because I guess they think Trump and Biden are the same. But he can now focus on fundraising. He can focus on gathering unity with all of the other candidates that were in the race before, as well as reaching out to people who weren't part of the Democratic primary. I know I saw some sort of rumor about Republicans for Biden. Not a rumor, I guess. You see things on Twitter. Republicans, and I can't spell today. For Biden. Now, I think with this Republicans for Biden, if it does come together, people are like, oh no, I don't have any problem with Republicans for Biden because this is not a traditional year. No, I'm not seeing anything. Let me check news. Nope. But if it does come together, I think it's more like the Never Trumper situation. I think if Biden does pull some Republican support, it would be those people who would be old school retired people. I mean, Bob Dole obviously isn't around anymore, but I would imagine it would be people like Bob Dole, conservatives from a completely different era. And to be fair, you're never going to win an election, a general election, by appealing to the most left part of the United States. You have to appeal to the most, like where the most voters are. And most voters are politically somewhere near the center, just in the terms of the aggregate. I agree, it's why we need unions. I think the United States basically needs some sort of worker furlough program. But as I was trying to, the frustrating thing about that is, maybe people will see it now. A worker furlough program that keeps people linked to their jobs and keeps people in grocery stores has a less disruptive effect than the sort of mass firing and then mass job seeking. It's so disruptive to the economy to force everyone who needs a short-term reduction in hours out of employment in order to qualify for unemployment, so they can then job seek again. And they don't necessarily have a job to go back to because they've now disconnected from their their employer. It would actually cost less money to pay people to not work. And I think that would be the biggest objection to this worker furlough program, that a lot of centrist and right center and far right commentators will flip out, will lose their at the idea of paying people to not work. However, it just fiscally makes sense. It's less costly in the long run to pay people to not work for 8 or 10 weeks or 12 weeks and then go back to their jobs and increase their hours again than this whole nightmare process where the unemployment system is crashing. The challenge another challenge though, in terms of how Americans would do this, is one. I think the way that it works here is that it's part of what employees pay into their unemployment insurance. So it's not going to be paid for by businesses, or at least not fully. Employees would basically be paying into a fund to have a pot of money in case they got, they needed temporary furloughing or like unemployment as now. So I don't even know if it would necessarily cost businesses all that much to do it, but then the challenge becomes kind of like an Obamacare thing. Do you do it at the federal level where you create a federal program? Now it makes, like the states handle unemployment insurance, I'm pretty sure is handled on the state level. So it becomes super complicated because of federalism in order to apply this. But on the other hand, if Germany can do it, why can't we? Like if Germans can figure out how to do this and it saves them 10 points on their unemployment numbers, surely we can figure out a way of doing something similar. If it's going to save literally millions of jobs, surely we can find a solution. Now, I don't know what that is because this isn't my policy area. But if other people can do it, and I know the UK has a furlough program. I'm sure a lot of other European countries do too, but because I only know of the two, I'm only going to speak to two, the German system format and the UK system. If these countries can do it, why can't America? Surely it's in our economic interest to do this, to protect ourselves from a 10-point jump on unemployment. Right, so I just wanted to say why we can't really compare 2016 to 2020. Anyone who tries to tell you that online, tell that, they're just like, look, was 2016 a pandemic? No. Was 2016 depression era levels of unemployment? No. Was 2016 a situation where the Democratic nominee had been picked as early as April and the president couldn't really control the narrative because of the global crises? No. It also means that in a lot of ways we're in uncharted territory, polling-wise. I mean, we've done a lot of polling in presidential elections that has been based in either, like a good economy or a bad economy. We've done polling while America's basically been at war, since in some sort of war, since like the 1980s or something. It's been ridiculous how much between the Korean War, Vietnam War, Gulf Wars, Afghanistan War, so having elections during wartime isn't even that unusual. Like that's not an independent factor that, seems to really change the way that the elections go. It really comes down to the economy. But maybe maybe 2020 will be more determined on, I mean, they're intricately linked, obviously, the pandemic handling and the economy. But it might be that seniors, even though maybe people in their working years are more concerned about their economic situation, seniors might be really driven to behave differently if they feel like their health, not just their finances are at stake, but if their health is at stake as well, that might become an issue that supersedes all other concerns. You know, I want to make sure I'm alive to vote next time, let alone I'm economically prosperous next time. So I think when it comes to trying to predict what's going to happen in November, especially as early as May, I think we really need to be open to the idea that there is no parallel for this election. We're flying blind. Prior elections can't really help us out very much, and we're all just going to have to kind of see this as it comes and deal with the evolving political, economic, and health situation in real time as we're looking at the polling results. All right, well, that was all I had to say about that. People in the chat, y'all are super quiet. Is my stream still going? Yeah, okay, the stream's still going. Maybe you're just listening to me natter on. Maybe you're falling asleep to the sound of my dulcet tones as I natter on about random polling things. Anyway, that's my opinion on that. Yeah, so I'm trying to think how we're supposed to do this. Because I always go longer than I think I'm going to. Did I just talk a half an hour? Yeah, I just talked for a half an hour. I do remark, I'm like, I don't know if I talked that much, and then you get me in front of a mic and I manage to fill it 30 minutes nonstop. I'm trying to decide if we should take a break, and because my coffee is cold, and I've been drinking a lot of coffee today, which I should probably switch to water, which I also have here. I have a pint of water, maybe that would be better. But I'm thinking that I don't want to go too long today. I was thinking about an hour-long program when I'm just like, I don't have that much to talk about. So I thought maybe take a break now, then come back and do a PragerU video, and then kind of wrap it up, if you guys wouldn't mind. But I'm going to wait and see if you guys have comments in the chat. So if you have any reflections, I do see that Brett Sucks. Hey, Brett Sucks. And Po Mama Sid, you're in the chat too. I already said hi to Lonely Wolf. Hello. Says... This is why we need unions. Generally, I think the United States needs unions. The approach of American capitalism is, I think, almost like default antagonism. Management adopts a default antagonistic view of labor, and the idea that the workers are like a cost or a problem or something to be managed and broken down is just really exhausting. And compared to where there are works councils here in Germany, and I don't think that actually unions in the UK are that good, to be honest, in terms of power. Yeah, when you want to talk about what gives people a middle-class lifestyle, one, it's government jobs that have good pensions and good benefits, and that do have union organization, and then also other the existence of the middle class and its decline is correlated with the decline in union membership and activity, and that decline in union membership and activity is linked to Republicans destroying the ability of unions to be effective. True. It's early morning and the coffee's not kicked in enough for typing. Fair enough. I'm just listening to my wine aunt share some wisdom. Yeah. If it was time for mimosas, I would be mimosa aunt this morning. All right, let's, okay, tell you what, before we do that, because I know 30 minutes is not, 30 minutes is a lot more than some people do on their shows. But what I will do is I will put up Prager. So yeah, you can see what I've been watching of late. All right, let's do Christy embarrassing. What's she been watching? We've got YouTube rappers. You guys know how I like my YouTube rappers. Then D&D. I mean, I'm so excited about this build I've got coming up for 2 weeks from now. Anyway, SNL, so secret, after a couple shows, and the last couple times after happy hours, Kevin and I have been watching old clips of Saturday Night Live, like before we say goodbye, just sharing them together. That's fun. And Godzilla. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, but I am learning the speed section of the Godzilla song from Eminem, which I would actually recommend, maybe not that one, because that speed section is advanced for anybody. I mean, Eminem is like, he's a goat for a reason. But there is a lot of, I find it really fun to study rap lyrics and master them, because I don't know how to explain it. It's like figure skating for your tongue and lips, or it's like a roller coaster for your mouth. I don't really know how to quite explain it. Hamilton, some of the bits in Hamilton are good to learn, and they're much slower, and they're much easier. But there is something, like when I learn, I know we're going to go to Prager. We're going to go on Prager, but let me just explain. For those of you who've never tried to learn extensively a rap lyrics, when I play an instrument like a guitar, your muscle memory learns the shape of the chords, or it learns the pattern of the fingering of a particular bit. Any song has a kind of stuff. And as you build up your familiarity with it, your muscle memory in some way just kind of runs unconsciously. Anyone who plays an instrument will understand what I'm talking about here. And so you can sing along to a song and keep your beat and not have to think too much about what your hands are doing, because they know what shapes to make at what point. It's very similar with rap. There are times when I'm learning rap lyrics and I won't consciously know what the word is. Like, I'll forget what the word is, but because I've rehearsed it so much, my mouth automatically starts to go into the shape of the next word. I don't know if you imagine that sensation, but you're like, forget it, and then suddenly your mouth takes another shape and it kind of fills in the blank for you. Like, oh, this is where I meant to go. And so that kind of muscle memory that you could experience with playing an instrument or piano or whatever, like a drum, it might just immediately forget, but your muscle memory tells you exactly where to put your drumstick. It's the same way with rap. And there's a really fun part. All right, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do the Prager year thing. Oh my god, this is why I could fill an hour. All right, lyrics, Godzilla, Eminem, that's the one. All right. And the other thing, with M, and especially with this song, he's really good with interesting compositions of his timing. I think he's kind of broken out of he's just a lot of fun. And it's also, you can tell, rap is something that people can just get better at with age. So, right. Yes, it starts here. Fill him with the venom and eliminate him. Otherwise, I minute made him. I don't want to hurt him, but I did him in a fit of rage or murdering. Again, nobody will evade him. Finna kill him and dump all the in the obliterating everything, incinerate and renegade him. Okay, so it goes on and on like this. But for me, the area that's super, super fun, I thought it was going to be the Attila lines that were the most fun, but it's actually the ones after that for some reason, because it goes, anyway. Right, so he's got basically, I can tell now he has almost 2 tones in his voice, and I think that's because he starts his fill him with the venom and eliminate him line with air up in a different part of his lungs, and then when he gets to, because I'm beginning to feel like I'm mentally ill, Matilla, killer be killed, I'm a killer, be the vanilla gorilla, you bring in the killer within me, out of me, you don't want to be the enemy of the demon who went in me, or be on the receiving end of me, what stupidity it'd be. That part, he goes into a different part of his breath, and his tone changes because he's switching. I think this is why it happens. He's switching where he's getting his oxygen from. But so for me, actually, it's this bit. You're bringing the killer within me, out of me, you don't want to be the sorry, this is why I have to practice. You're bringing the killer with me. I have to start at the beginning, sorry. Because I'm beginning to feel like I'm mentally ill. I'm a killer, be killed. I'm a killer, be the vanilla gorilla. You bringing the killer within me, out of me. You don't want to be the enemy of the demon who went in me. It was you bringing the killer within me, out of me. You don't want to be the enemy of the demon who went in me. That was actually the most fun to do, because you get these O sounds in there, and you start off with the I sounds. I'm beginning to feel like I'm mentally ill, right? I'm Attila, kill or be killed. I'm a killer bee, the vanilla gorilla. And then to try to drop in that, the out of me, it's just kind of like a roller coaster. Okay, I need to shut up about this. It's way too much detail. But I would say it's when people talk about lyrical dexterity, try it out, because it's actually, I think, and I'm of course a nerd and a geek, I think it's quite fun. And the other one that's quite good is I'm unfadable, you want a battle, I'm available, I'm blown up like an inflatable, I'm undebatable, I'm unavoidable, I'm unevadable. That's also a lot of fun. That bit right there is so much fun to do. So yeah, recently watched a video about a freestyle rap that became a meme. Oh, it was interesting. Yeah. DNFN, if you want to like drop me a line on that, either in the chat or on Twitter, I'd love to see that. So anyway, that's currently I'm able to do about 80% of M speed on that, and I will continue to increase my speed rate, although I don't have it 100% memorized yet. There's sometimes still a little gap in my memory, and that's when my muscle memory. All right. Okay, so that was about it. Prager. Let's pick a Prager video, and then we'll come back and do it after the break. So let's go to their dumb 5 minutes dumber in 5 minutes playlist. And we haven't done this in a while, so presumably they've got some, I don't know, anti-coronavirus or hysteria things. Lies about Israel. I don't know enough about Israel. The bravery deficit. Why are so many Americans conservatives are the real environmentalists? What was revolutionary about the American Revolution? Have they not done many of these lately? They started to move away from these because they're not making a lot of money. You can give me the last part. Oh, right. That's right, Deanne. You have to be a mod in order to post things, right? Okay. Well, congratulations. You've just been upped. Actually, as long as I'm handing out wrenches. Lonely Wolf, bam. You are now a mod. And anyone else? Yeah, I'm gonna be pretty free with the moderation handing out here. If I know you, if I feel like, yeah. If you're a regular and I recognize your name, and don't feel bad if you don't get modded yet, you just keep coming back eventually. It'll happen. All right. I don't know. Is voter fraud real? Why are so many young people unhappy? That one I don't want to, I think I would not feel good about. All right. Should we talk about maybe social justice isn't justice? Try to leave you guys with that one. How about that? We'll try to we'll see what PragerU has to say about social justice. Unless you guys have other comments in the chat. And you have another pick that you would prefer. Again, I don't feel comfortable talking about Israel, so there are some things that I just stay away from because I don't know enough. I don't want to give my uninformed opinion. I'd rather give a slightly informed opinion. So let's call it 5 minutes. It's 41 after the hour now. We'll call it 46, 47-ish. And I think this is my cue for turning up the music. I think that's what we do at this point. All right. See you guys in a bit. I was muted. Sorry I'm late. It took me longer than I thought. Actually, I just got distracted and lost track of time. Sorry. So hey, yeah, welcome back. I see DNF fan, or DNF fan, has a link for us. Let's see where this takes us. Oh, something went wrong. Can you try it again? For some reason that link isn't working. Free rap style. Yeah, can you double check your link? Not sure why it's not coming up. It's just telling me something went wrong. Should we try it again? Okay. I do not send cake, by the way. On in my heart, I do electronically, but no, I know you guys are joking about that. All right, we said we were gonna do social justice. Oh, I have to put on my headphones now. Ugh. All right. All right. Let's have a look. Oh, this is going to be good. They're going to reference the Bible. Oh, I can already tell this is going to be... Let me connect up here. Oh, this is going to be dumb. Okay. I can already tell this is going to be dumb. Okay. Let's see what they have to say. And I will have to turn on my desktop audio for you guys to hear this. And sadly, I will have to listen to it too. Why do we do this to ourselves? All right, let's see what the description is. You'll see a lot of references to justice in the Bible, but you'll never see the word social preceded. Why? Simply because social justice is a new cause that postdates the Bible. That's true. The Bible thought slavery was okay, and social justice is completely the opposite of the idea of slavery. So it makes sense that social justice postdates the Bible. Or is it because social justice, by its very nature, is directly at odds with justice as the Bible defines it? That's a good point, because if your morality is in a framework that thinks that rape is a property crime, that human slavery is okay, and that patriarchy, unmerited authority being handed to a person because of their genitalia is the way to structure your world, well then yeah, the idea that every single human being has a dignity that we all share, that dignity transcends the situations of our birth or the circumstances of our birth, and the, sort of like the place, time, conditions, cultures in which we are born, well, then yeah, you're going to have a lot of conflicts there, because one is based on authoritarian justification upheld through violence, that being the Bible, and the other one is a humanist approach bounded and supportive of a secular system that aims toward equality for all. So, yeah, of course those are going to be in conflict. Okay, I'll try it again. Allie Beth Stuckey, host of Relatable on Blaze TV, takes a fresh look. She's fresh, she's so fresh. Exciting. Do 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 do. That's how fresh that this take is going to be, I bet. All right, let's see if that one works. Dang it, no. Again, something's not happening. Not sure why. Can you give me the title of the video as opposed to a link to it, DNFN? Perhaps if I just do a search for the key terms, it will come up that way. Not sure why it's not working, but... all right. Okay. Prager. All right, let's go ahead and check this out.
The Lord is a God of social justice.
No, not really. Not the one that you find in the Hebrew texts or the Christian texts. That God don't give a about social justice.
That's the message in many, maybe most, churches and synagogues in America and the West today.
And I would agree that this is entirely historical revisionism on the part of modernity. The way that modernity plays down the slavery parts of the Bible, the way it plays down treating women as chattel and property, the way it normalizes violence against children, various types of sexual violence and human trafficking. Yeah, there's a lot of modern human rights norms that are snuck into Christian texts in particular in order to make it look like it's more moral than it really is. I would agree with that. Like, the God of the Bible is not a social justice God. The God of the Bible is a God for Jews. You know, it is fine. Do what you want to do. Everyone had their own religion back then. But it's not a universal. Like, Jesus didn't convert a single person to his way of thinking. Not a one. Not a one. Not a one.
But here's the problem.
All right, people are telling me, okay, right click. All right, copy link address. Paste. I don't know how it's working for you guys, and it's not working for me. Honestly, don't know. You just watched me do it, so you know I don't know what it is. So anyway, yeah. Do the name of the video. I'll try it again. Okay, let's go on with this.
The Bible doesn't actually say that. It says in Isaiah, "The Lord is a God of justice." You'll find a lot of references to justice in the Bible, but you'll never find it preceded by the word social.
That's right. And also, you know what it says in Isaiah, in a different chapter. Yes, Isaiah, and make peace. Pretty sure it's Isaiah. Create evil. Yeah, I was. It's an atheist who knows her Bible. Another thing it says in the Bible is that the Lord creates evil. I form the light and create darkness. That's a very modern interpretation. It's darkness, darkness, darkness. Interesting. Why does they look at this like they all change it to darkness? Why does Isaiah say that God creates evil? The King James Version, I form the light and create darkness. Oh, there it is. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So it says in there, God takes credit for doing evil. So, that's also in Isaiah. Just wanted to point it out. God going like, yeah, evil, right here. Credit right here. I do all that. I, the Lord God, I make the evil. I do the good things and the bad things. Everything. If he wants us, but then people try to find a way to excuse him all the time. Anyway. Yeah, maybe I can't get out of the studio while I'm streaming because I'm running the studio. I mean, I could, but then I'd have to shut down the stream. So maybe that's it. Okay. Thank you again, DN. You're doing so much work, ENF fan. All right. Okay. I bet if I do it this way, it'll work. Because, I can go to a stupid Prager video. So if I can go to a stupid Prager video, why can't I externally find my way? Yeah. Okay. Now it works. See? For some reason, okay, so this is the one. People can go check that out later. All right, I wanted to solve that problem. Technical difficulties bother me until I sort out why. All right, so God of the Bible, either the Hebrew text or the Christian, he didn't care about social justice. He cared about divine justice, and divine justice is capricious. Here we go.
But you're probably thinking, what's the difference? Isn't God the God of justice and social justice?
No. Honestly, maybe there are people who think this, but honestly, if you know anything about the Bible, divine justice is whatever God decides is just. It has no framework other than the capricious will of the divine being. God can make sexual assault fine. In that sense, and actually, that is it's the justice of the God of the Bible is to make sexual assault crimes property crimes, which means women are property, which means they're not human, which means they're denied their social justice. They don't have a path forward of equal protection under the law that men who are victims would be entitled to. Of course, they don't even deal with, I don't think, male victims of sexual assault in the text. But anyway, yeah, I guess maybe some people are confused by this, but honestly, to me, it seems like a complete false question. Well, we'll see.
Well, not if he's consistent. You see, God cannot be the God of justice and social justice because social justice is not just.
No, social justice is based on an assumption of equality and the idea that justice and that equality should be extended out regardless. Whereas justice in the Bible, as we pointed out, is the capricious nature of the moral framework imposed by a deity on his creation. So it's only God's opinion of what's just. There's no relation to human suffering or human flourishing. Whereas social justice is about getting justice in the social sphere within a society where everyone can be equal. And we know the Bible is inherently hierarchical. So
justice is getting what you deserve without favor.
No. No. Not in the Bible, it's not. Definitely not in the Bible. Look at Job. Look at the story of Job in the Bible. How can you read the Bible and think that what happened to Job was just? Job did not get what he deserved. He was a loyal servant, a loyal worshiper of Yahweh. And Yahweh decided to mess with him to see how far he could push him. Yahweh killed off his entire family and then gave him a new one as if women and children were just, replaceable like tires on a car. And Job did not deserve that. We also know, and theologically, you can be a great person in Christian theology. You can live your whole life being, let's say, a Buddhist nun. And you make an effort to be peaceful, and you make an effort to be kind, and you're not greedy, and you're very self-sacrificing in terms of your material wealth. You're not exploiting people in any meaningful way. But if you don't hold the right belief, you are damned. So in what way is that just? In what way is that deserved? So, no. These are lies. Lies.
Social justice is getting what you don't deserve because you are favored.
Wow. People who experience violence, harassment, and discrimination are getting what they don't deserve when they are asked to or by law required to be treated like equal human beings. Treating people you disagree with respect and equality under law, you think is giving them some kind of favoritism because under a biblical system, you would stone them to death. Is that what you're saying? What gay people really deserve is to be stoned to death. So if we treat them like normal human beings, that's social justice because they are not being killed. Thanks, Prager, you. Y'all are Nazis. God didn't write the Bible, various disciples and followers. Yes, so initially, there's a really, really good series. So by the way, Brett Sex, thank you for that. The Hebrew texts are an amalgamation. People didn't understand they were writing the Torah when it was being written, right? People came by later and put it into a collection. Same thing with the Gospels. The author of Mark, I should say, didn't write a gospel saying, I'm going to write one gospel out of 4. The authors of Mark and the author of Matthew and Luke and John, they were all writing for their own communities. They had no idea they were going to end up as canon. So, yeah, God didn't write anything. Imaginary beings can't write anything. So, yeah, thanks, Brett Sucks, for that comment.
Justice is blind.
Well, yeah, and God's justice is not blind. God's justice is the opposite of blind. God's justice is very much whatever God thinks at the time. For God, justice is wiping out the entirety of humanity with a flood, and then going, you know what? I'm not going to do that again. And now I'm going to make a rainbow as a promise that I won't flood y'all to death. That's my promise to you. That's not justice. That's capriciousness.
Social justice is not.
Again, these are, God, this is so bad. I'm just going to make a declaratory statement without actually substantiating it in any meaningful way. God, this is garbage. This is seriously garbage. All right.
Let's say a man robs a store. Justice demands but one thing, that he be tried in a court of justice and...
Wait, I thought we were talking about the Bible. I thought we were talking about the Bible. Bible justice versus social justice. Bible justice what happens to thieves in the Bible? Like, did they get, I don't know. I'd have to check. I mean, I know what happens with unruly kids. But I guess we could look it up.
And if he is found guilty, punished.
Again, she's now conflating secular notions of justice with biblical notions of justice, which you can't do. So, punishment for theft in the Bible. I don't even really know how much extent to which these types of things are punishment for stealing. Okay. Let's see. Oh man, this really small font and very bright. All right. Oh, whoa. Whoa. So we got punishment for stealing mentioned in a couple places in the Bible that she wants to quote as being the divine justice. If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of depositor's security, or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in all things that people do and sin thereby, he shall restore it in full and add a fifth, and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day he realizes his guilt. In Exodus, it says, if a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay the 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. That's God's justice in the Bible. Let's see. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his appetite when he is hungry. But if he is caught, he will pay 7-fold, and he will give all the goods of his house. What? That's not justice in the current system. You don't have to pay someone back 7 times what you stole. You go to jail, you might pay a fine. But there's no, calculation like this. But if the sun is risen on him, there shall be a blood guilt for him. Surely he shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the stolen beast is found alive and in his possession, whether an ass or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. If you steal, you get sold into slavery. That's the justice. That's the justice you find in the Bible. So, Prager, why you lying? Why you always lying? Why you lying? Yeah, I mean, this is just. I want to let's just put a quote for Exodus. Let's just troll them a little bit, because this is just so. I can't even believe this. I can't even believe how much they lie. So we say God's, the Yahweh's justice. Troll posting on a live show. I don't think we need to put the translation version. There we go. Oh, I left out okay, now I have to edit it because I left out except I don't have the double. So I have a German keyboard, so I don't know where this is. So I have to copy this one over here and put it at the end. Okay, now it's not got a typo in it. I feel better. Yeah. So this is just lies. There's no court. There's no peer judgment of your peers. That's Magna Carta. I mean, Magna Carta didn't even apply to common and peasant and commoners and peasants. Magna Carta applied to the peers of, the royal, a jury of your peers being nobles. So none of this is biblical. All of this is secular. All of this is post-biblical. God, they're so bad. They're such liars.
That is not how social justice works. Social justice doesn't only ask if the person is guilty. It asks about his economic condition.
What? All right. let's just, they don't even define social justice. They haven't even bothered to define social justice, well, because they lie to people and make up things because they can't actually refute the reality. So let's look at a definition of social justice. Justice in terms of the distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. Yeah, justice in the social sphere, justice in society. That's what social justice means. It means when you go out for a run, you shouldn't have to worry about people targeting you because of your skin color, that they're going to hunt you down and shoot you in the street. Living without that fear is social justice. And little Miss Whitey over here finds that threatening with her Aryan perspective on what justice is. In this context, social justice is based on the common concept of human rights and equality, which Blaze TV can't stand. Can't have human equality because then you have to respect people that you want to hate. And can be defined as the way in which human rights are manifested in the everyday lives of people and at every level of society. Wow, why do you think it is that PragerU can't give an honest definition of social justice? Maybe because if they actually showed the modern definition of social justice, the accurate one, well, then they'd have to agree that morally it supersedes and is superior to the biblical framework of chattel ownership, patriarchy, and religious bigotry. I mean, I can't think where I'm wrong in that reasoning. Okay. Oh, God, they lie.
Is he poor or wealthy? About his upbringing. What kind of childhood did he have?
That has nothing to do with the actual court case. And besides, can I just make the point? People were using the situations and circumstances of somebody's birth long before conscious social movement came up. I mean, that's just defense attorneys. So when we're talking about a legal defense for a criminal, there are no mitigating circumstances in law to say, oh, if they grew up in a childhood household that made this much money, their sentence is modified. This is complete straw man arguments. They have to lie because they don't have any. If they didn't have straw man arguments, they wouldn't have any at all.
About his race or ethnicity. Is he a member of a group that has been historically oppressed?
God, she just sits there and lies. Like, how do you do that? Like, I don't believe in a hell, but people who do this, like, they should have some form of punishment. And they're not going to get it because when we're dead, we're dead. Anyway.
Justice demands that everyone be equal under the law.
Again, not under the Bible. Under the Bible, women have no rights. Under the Bible, children have no rights. You can smack your kids up. You can do whatever you want to your wife. There's nothing to protect women or children in their divine justice. So what they've done is they've actually appropriated secularism. They've taken the intellectual and cultural efforts to rise above the primitive Bronze Age frameworks of power based on violence, the threat of violence, and moved it to one based on the idea of equality under the law. And they want to say that the Enlightenment secular ideals are found in their biblical text, which is a lie. I want to debate this woman. Someone find, let's do that debate. I'd love that. I'd rip her to shreds. I'd be able to quote my Isaiah. I'd be able to get all my stuff out there.
Social justice demands that everyone be equal.
No, social justice starts from a premise that everyone is equal and then looks at the ways in which in our society they are not treated as equal. Again, lies. La.
Period. Economically, socially, and in every other possible way. Justice asks, who did it?
Again, they're oh my God, the idiocy of comparing. I mean, first, they're not, she introduced the Bible and then just dropped the Bible but kept the word justice and moved it over into the secular law place, the secular sort of legal framework that was developed after Magna Carta. It was developed way after. It's not based in the biblical notion of justice at all. And then wants to compare legal justice to social justice as if she doesn't understand that these are completely different spheres. Like the economic sphere is different. Sorry, I feel like I've got something on my nose. Maybe it's just a shiny bit of the light. Economic is sphere, economic justice, social justice is in society. Right. Political justice or civil rights and civil in the legal parts of society. I feel like I have to define what words mean to these people. Like they're speaking a completely different language.
Social justice asks, why did he do it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Oh my God, this is so bad. This is so bad.
Lost in all these social justice considerations is the individual's own responsibility for what he did.
Right, because it's your fault if you're born into an area that has been economically deprived because it has a lot of minority population and the majority group of the city are under resourcing your education system, are using your population as a way to assign fines in order to generate more revenue for the city, and your population is being targeted for violence and also has higher level employments than the dominant whites. That's your fault, apparently. It's not society's fault for creating a structure in which you are, upon birth, already at a massive disadvantage compared to somebody who is prosperous in your same city. No. People are to blame, apparently, for the poverty that they grow up in. I mean, there's just so much like social Darwinism about this. And white people who grow up in a middle class or better environment, who think that they can take credit. Oh, I pulled myself up on my bootstraps. No, you pull yourself up on the slave labor that was used to build this country, and also on the unfair advantages you got as a white person in the entire history of America. You don't really compete as a white person against other people except white people in America. And they don't see it. They think that they earned it because they had a minimum wage job for a few years through college. DTFO with that BS.
That's why social justice advocates have abandoned the term justice.
Or maybe that she explains it. But I mean, you just call them social justice advocates? So if they've abandoned the concept of abandoned the word, I'm sorry, I have to go back. All right. At no point did Jesus care how he got there. He only asks why he kept his wealth. Oh, are we talking about the guy who wanted the rich guy? Yep. Yeah. Jesus said it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. Exactly. And what rich people want to say is that it's not impossible. It's just super difficult. No, like Jesus is saying, it would be as easy for you to put your house on the top of Mount Everest as it would be for you to get into heaven. Now, does it mean that it's impossible? No. But does it mean that you have a much greater burden than everybody else who doesn't have that wealth? Yeah. You're at the back of the line if you're the wealthy people, according to that teaching. Right? There's a whole lot of people that Jesus sees who can say, you know what? They're not going to have the burdens you have because they don't have the attachment to your wealth. What's stopping you is your attachment to your wealth. So what you need to do is you need to abandon that attachment to your wealth, give up your wealth, and follow me because the world is going to end. He was wrong, but that's what he's saying. And now people are like, it's kind of like, oh, so there's a 0.005% chance I'll get into heaven if I'm a billionaire. So you're saying there's a chance. Like, no, you missed. You've missed.
Okay. But he did. That's why social justice advocates have abandoned the term justice. They deem justice alone as unfair.
She's not quoting anybody. She's just making things up. She's not defined social justice. She's completely abandoned the concept of divine justice, done a swap, replaced it with legal justice, then completely misrepresented the idea of a legal defense or some framework for a legal mitigating circumstances legal defense as social justice in a legal system, not in a social system. And God, it's just lies upon lies upon lies.
And sometimes it is. A man who is beaten by his father and abandoned by his mother is more likely to commit a violent crime than a man raised in a loving home. But those facts cannot and should not determine his innocence or guilt.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about social justice. We're not talking about legal, they don't know the difference between the legal system and social justice. This is how idiotic and uninformed and ignorant PragerU is. And this is why they make people dumber. Social justice is a different concept. Like, it's a human rights concept. Legal justice comes from the civics, the law side of things. And there are, the idea of mitigating circumstances is a legal strategy. It's not a social justice movement. You don't, oh God, if this was an essay, if I had to mark this, if you write all this out as an essay, this would get enough. I could not give any points for this. They get basic, they don't even define their basic terms. They're not consistently applied across the text. They cite no sources or, give any definitions that I can independently review. And they don't even keep their concepts straight for the first 2 minutes of their own video. This is just poor. This is poor on so many levels. Feelings don't care about my facts. No, clearly. Clearly, Tony, their feelings are all over this. And their reasonable thinking and rational thinking is not. I just feel like this needs a more formal debunking. But I'm not quite sure how, and I don't know if I have the time.
Why? Because justice is first and foremost about truth.
Can you already anticipate my objections to this?
Is the person guilty or innocent of the crime?
Again, this is not what social justice is dealing with. She's dealing with legal concepts, which is why she doesn't understand it. She's too ignorant to understand, to see why she's wrong, or she understands that she's lying to people and she's deliberately lying. She's either ignorant or she's lying. There's no options besides those two.
None of us is omniscient. We don't know why people do what they do. After all, the vast majority of people raised in abusive homes do not commit violent crimes, nor do the vast majority of people who are members of an historic...
She's also conflating the idea of anyone who is a subject of a social justice cause. In other words, anyone who is denied their equality in the social sphere. She's linking them with criminality here. God, this is like so Nazi. This is so fascist. It's sort of like ideologically aligns with that kind of
historically oppressed group. Being a victim, however that is defined, is no excuse for hurting other people.
No one ever said it was, and nor does social justice. Again, when you don't understand the concepts you're critiquing, you sound like you don't know about the concepts you're critiquing. How embarrassing for her. This is just ridiculous.
And what about those who are hurt, the victims of those crimes?
Again,
shouldn't they and other law-abiding citizens be society's first consideration?
Why did we even talk about the Bible? Why did she even start off with the Bible? When you start off, just like thematically, the point of setting up a concept early on is because it's the framework within which you want to work. Right, so she spends her first part talking about the Bible and then just completely drops it as a concept.
Social justice advocates say no. They say we need social justice to even things out.
Again, they're talking about the social sphere, not the legal sphere. She doesn't know the difference between the legal structures and civic, rights and social justice and social, the idea of social equality.
And that means favoring the have-nots over the haves.
No, it doesn't. The haves are already favored. This is it. It's not about favoring the have-nots over the haves. It's acknowledging the haves have been favored forever. And it's time to let the have-nots enjoy the same kind of lifestyle and opportunities that the haves have. Is it really such a privileged thing to walk out of your house and not have to worry about the cops shooting you dead? Really? Is that something that only the haves can have? How about going into a store and not being followed because of the color of your skin? Basic things like this. Not being harassed because of whatever religious garb you're wearing. Is that only reserved for Christians? How do you have justice when you're saying only certain people in a society get to be treated like full human beings? And when the rest of us ask for full treatment, full human being treatment, then we're being uppity and we're asking for more than we deserve. Oh my God, white supremacy all over this.
The poor over the rich, the female over the male.
Again, not ignoring entirely that the rich have had decades and centuries of advantage because of exploitation of slavery, of men who appropriated all of the wealth that came to their wives, and the women didn't own it. And those historical advantages are built into the structures that we currently have. Like, that wealth is built into white middle-class America. That goes all the way back to slave labor. Like, we're still benefiting. There are white people in this country who are still benefiting from the advantages that slavery gave them. So is it so ridiculous to ask that the descendants of those slaves have the same, not even more opportunity, just the same opportunities at wealth and education and improving their lifestyle and having, kids and living the dream? Apparently just, aspiring to what white men stole from everybody else. You're being all uppity and demanding more than you deserve.
And the brown or black over the white. The Bible does not see the world this way.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh yeah, it does. Yahweh is all like, if you're with me, you're with me. And if you're not, I don't know you. So that's total favoritism. There's no justice there. Yahweh doesn't say, oh, look, you can be Jewish and follow my laws and that's great, but I'm just going to treat Gentiles the exact same way, even if they sacrifice to idols. You think that's the kind of equality that happens in the Bible? No, absolutely not. It's religious bigotry in the Bible.
In fact, it speaks against it in very explicit terms.
Oh, yeah, this
Here's a law in the book of Exodus. Do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd.
Yeah, you know who that applies to? Jews. Like, that's it. You think this is it? I mean, so frustrating. Everything in the Hebrew text was directed at the Hebrew people, Israel, the Jewish people, however organized you want to do it. But that is, and also, this text doesn't speak to women. It doesn't speak to kids. Look at the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments was written by men for men, and women are considered property, along with your ass and your neighbor's property. Right? So when you read it, like the what is the wisdom? The wisdom chapter, is it Proverbs? That's all directed at men. She's completely ignoring that women were not human beings. She's completely ignoring the fact that children had no rights, and that these people owned slaves. People owned slaves in the time of Exodus, but she wants to hold this up because the elite men of the right religious group were told to have some equality within their little patriarchal religious bigotry, supremacy, chauvinistic little crowd there. That's not justice. That's tyranny. Absolute tyranny. And if she was alive at that point, she wouldn't even be able to talk about these things because she would have been denied an education. So, boop, shut your mouth, white woman. Karen, what do you know about? You don't know anything about what you're talking about. So shut your dumb mouth. You're making things worse.
And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit.
Of the same group. Within the same group. You think that when they were slaughtering the Canaanites, they're like, oh, no. When we sue the Canaanites, we got to make sure that if they're poor. No, this is all in-group equality. This is literally no different than the founding fathers saying, okay, well, first of all, white women, y'all don't have any rights, none. We're going to make sure you guys can't vote. Obviously, black people, well, the slaves, we don't consider them human, so we can't give them any rights. And we don't want free blacks to be able to vote because then, it's going to give people the wrong idea about equality. And the native people, whenever we take over a territory by violence, we're not going to extend to them the rights of participating in our society. So let's all of us white men with the same background and the same education, same general religious beliefs, all decide that we're equal. That is not equality. That is not equality. It's only when people of color, and women agitated to be considered in that circle. That's when you started to actually move toward equality. I can't believe the kind of chauvinism and just authoritarianism Absolute tyranny. Yep, precisely.
Here's one in Leviticus. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor.
Again, they don't, the neighbor thing is your local Jewish neighbor. It's not to the pagans. It's ignorant white women.
Or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor justly.
Yeah, except if it's a woman or a slave or your child, in which case they don't have any rights. Or a non-believer.
Moses, the greatest lawgiver in history, declares in Deuteronomy, follow justice and justice alone.
Yeah, you know what else is attributed to Moses? Is when he followed God's orders to slaughter all of the boy children and also to take all of the girl children who had not known a man by lying with him and hand them out as domestic and sex slaves. Is that a great lawgiver in your opinion? Prager, human trafficking, sexual exploitation, child kidnapping, genocide, infanticide based on sex and gender selection? That's your great lawgiver, huh? Is that very just to you, do you think?
And the New Testament declares in the book of Romans, God shows no partiality.
God shows lots of partiality. God shows lots of partiality. Maybe not within the Christian group. You know, there's no Greek or free or slave or Greek or Jew or male or female. You're all judged by whether or not you have right belief, right thought, right think, whatever that's defined as at the time. But the idea that God shows no partiality, that would mean that God would take people who weren't Christians into heaven. So, in a Christian framework. And that's certainly not the case. Idiocy.
None of this means that there is no place for compassion in a system of justice.
Because we're not talking about the system of justice when we're talking about social justice, which was my point 5 minutes ago.
Of course there is. The Bible is preoccupied with the protection of the widow.
It's preoccupied. It is not preoccupied. It is not preoccupied. It has a few lines. And what it's basically saying is that the material conditions of women, women who are widowed and kids that are orphaned, are dependent on the charity and largesse of men who hold power, not a system that ensures that no member of the society is exploited or has social, economic distress. It's a charity-based individual selection as opposed to the idea of a structure of a social safety net to protect everybody. So again, oh man, conservative Christian bashing, yeah, they're terrible. They're really, really terrible. I can see exactly the kind of how it aligns with fascist thinking.
The orphan and unfortunate.
Yeah, it's all based on charity again, not on a notion that society should create the opportunities and the safety net to make sure everyone experiences prosperity.
But compassion follows justice.
Again, these random declarations that have no definition, no citation of philosophy or thinking on these issues. There's just a series of really uninformed emotions written into a text. Just fifis. This is just far-right, pro-patriarchy, pro-white supremacy, pro-inequality justification rhetoric.
It doesn't precede it. Also, justice in and of itself is compassionate.
So justice is inherently compassionate, but compassion cannot precede the inherently compassionate justice. Compassion can only follow the inherently compassionate justice. Word salad. This is utterly meaningless. Utterly meaningless.
First to the victims of crime and to their loved ones.
But the point of justice in the Bible was not about the rightness and wrongness of a deed done in the community. Justice in the Bible was a punishment for violating the rules God gave you. That was it. It was, you have done something bad in the sight of God, and you need to be punished because you broke it had a knock-on effect that hurt people. But that wasn't the main motivator. it was actually it's one thing that kind of makes the Hebrew history quite unique is that if you go and go and watch the history of the Hebrew Bible series by Dr. Christine Hayes, I want to say.
And second to the criminal. How can you?
It's about all of the books of the I don't like using the phrase Old Testament because it privileges Christianity in a way that it doesn't deserve. So the Hebrew text, and they plagiarized ideas from all over Mesopotamian culture that already existed that predated the Jewish writings. So like the wisdom writings, they actually just stole that from some pagans. That ain't original. That's like a lot of that stuff was taken. They found the original text and then they saw how they just made some variants on it. But it was typically the case that like the Hammurabi Code was a legal structure. So most pagan documents that we have are like the ways that we understand pagan societies work. So they had a legal structure for law cases, about punishments, about crimes and the conditions, and whether or not people could divorce, all that sort of stuff. But it was like a legal structure. It's secular, and then pagan beliefs were separate from that. What was quite unique about the ancient Jewish writings or Hebrew writings is that there was actually some linking between the idea that you've offended God and you've committed a social wrong. So when you sinned, that kind of like brought impurity into the community, and then by doing these purification rituals, you were able to like remove those things, blood rituals and the sort of magic power of blood and yada 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 sacrifice. So when it comes to the idea of biblical justice, the emphasis is put on the divine part of it, and righting wrongs in that way. But it's not simply about a criminal framework. And certainly what she leaves out is that the only people who had legal standing were like Jewish men in these systems. So we're talking again about an in-group form of equality where women and slaves and children are not considered legal persons who have no access to this kind of criminal justice. Like if you look at numbers and the situation where if a man thinks his wife has cheated on him, he can take her to the priest and the priest will give her some herbs that existed at the time that would induce an abortion. And if she is pregnant and the fetus dies, does she have any legal recourse? No. Why? Because she's not a real person. So again, this fetishization of the Bible as being, what our current values, secular values are, just is a misunderstanding.
You become a better human being if you don't first recognize that you've done something wrong.
What?
That's why
What? Where is that in the Hebrew text? I don't see that.
anytime we put an adjective before the word justice, we no longer have justice.
It's because we're not talking about legal justice, you moron. Maybe you need to expand your own notion of justice to beyond legal system. See, the whole point of this video is that you, or whoever wrote this script for you, and you weren't smart enough to catch it yourself, you don't know the difference between the concept of justice as a legal framework and justice in terms of human rights. So don't put your ignorance on us. Don't make us dumber because you can't do reading. Prager, not a you.
Economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice.
Again, none of these are economic justice is not about the legal system. Environmental justice is not about the legal system. It's just,
Any form of social justice which seeks to correct actual justice undermines justice.
This is really word salad. This is one of the worst videos I've ever seen by Prager. Even they're generally a quote at least somebody. I guess they're quoting the Bible here, but they don't even quote the Bible in the right context.
So then, if social justice is not a biblical concept,
and we agree, it's not, because slavery is incompatible with social justice. Treating sexual assault as a property crime is incompatible with social justice. Allowing for the abuse of children is incompatible with social justice. And rampant genocide based on religious discrimination, also incompatible with social justice.
Why do so many churches and synagogues promote it?
Because it's actually morally superior to what you have in your own Bible. Yeah, that's it. Like, 21st century Christians recognize the immorality inherent in their own texts, and they try to reconcile that cognitive dissonance by pretending that the morality, which is far superior to Bronze Age morality we have now, is actually where it's not. People lie to themselves. That's why churches teach it.
Because many Christians and Jews no longer regard biblical principles as binding.
Yes, imagine that. Principles such as an eye for an eye, or stoning people to death, or beating your children, or infanticide, or fill in the blank. Treating sexual assault as a property crime. Nobody feels bound by that anymore, because they know that it's morally reprehensible and indefensible. And say that they do a little two-step side shuffle, and they replace a far superior human morality, secular morality, developed primarily driven by the concept of human rights, especially after the Second World War, that better fits modern sensibilities for notions of justice than a pure, straight, and historically accurate reading of any biblical text.
Because it's a lot easier to dispense compassion than hold people to a biblical standard.
Yeah. Because we kind of gave up on mass stonings. We kind of stopped asking neighbors to kill each other as a group entertainment. Yeah, now we have a jury system and a humane prison system that aims to reform rather than execute people for crimes like theft. Wow. I mean, I guess they're upset. Like, they want to go back to getting your neighbors together and everyone picking up a stone and we all ritually and participate in murder to sort of exculpate or alleviate our collective guilt. Is that really a superior morality there, Becky, or whatever your name is?
And because leftism has superseded the Bible in many houses of worship, and leftism, as a guiding principle, holds that the weak are good and the powerful are bad.
Well, it certainly holds that structures that create unnecessary human suffering on the basis of, completely preventable forms of exploitation or abuse are bad. And then the people who actually are in those systems and work to perpetuate them and keep that unfair system, unjust system going, that, those powerful people are engaging in a bad act, and those who are exploited and disadvantaged, deserve justice. Good and bad, of course, she's not quoting anybody, but...
That's why the great battle of our time is between Judeo-Christian values and...
No. The great battle of your time... If you want to go back to Judeo-Christian values, girl, why are you even talking? You shouldn't be educated. You should be maybe sold into slavery, have your kids taken away from you. Or, you should basically have no property because your father owns you and then sells you off to another man. Those are Judeo-Christian values. You want to basically steal secular Enlightenment ideas that freed human beings from the kind of Bronze Age framework that you're talking about and claim that that is actually biblical. So you're the one doing the stealing, bish.
Leftist values. The former is rooted in justice.
No. Again, we've already established things that happen in the Bible are not just. They're the opposite of just. And secularism has developed a notion of justice based on human equality that does not exist in the Bible.
The latter is not. I'm Allie Beth Stuckey.
I'm an idiot who I just read the words put in front of me. I have no idea what I'm saying, and I don't even know enough to know that I am making no sense. And this is Prager you. God. Oh, this was awful. Awful, really. This was poor even by PragerU standards. They're just really phoning it in at this point. They're not even making an effort to keep a consistent notion of justice throughout, or to clearly distinguish between the notion of divine justice, social justice, legal justice, environmental or economic justice. These are all distinct spheres, and we can think about the concept of justice, or even what justice means outside, like it's a basic principle outside a legal framework, which is, you can do, like, lots of countries have different legal approaches to how they dispense justice. Man. Okay. Someone's gonna clip that. I don't know. All right. Leftist values. Hey, let's just treat people as people, yo. Yeah. Whereas the Bible is like, unless you believe the way I tell you, you're wrong. Oh, but if you believe the way I tell you and you're a woman, you don't really count. And if you're a child, and you're a sort of a man, you're like going to be a man, a cis man, you don't really count until you get to a certain age where I recognize you as a legal human being. Okay. Justice is a human invention. Yeah, everything's a human invention. There's nothing conceptual, linguistic, or anything else that we haven't created it in order to interpret our material experiences, or to describe ideas that we have based on our experiences. So everything is a social construct. That's not to say things don't exist independent of human consciousness, but the way that we perceive them, frame them, and talk about them are all socially or human constructs. Wow. They're really, like I said, this is poor, even for PragerU levels of poorness. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that you found that entertaining, because about time for me to wrap it up. As I said, we are doing a happy hour tonight, so after the show, I will set up next week's show, and I will set up a happy hour. Kevin and I don't know exactly what we got going on the show for tonight. There's some stuff Vosh has been saying, but then, like, getting into the Vosh stuff is going to require a lot of background and a lot of discussion of different terms, and I don't think I have the energy for that. And I don't think Jimmy Kimmel has stuff up, so I know Kevin's got a couple clips he wants to watch, and we'll see what we can find out. Maybe it'll be a short one on a Sunday night. But peoples, until next time, I'm going to wrap it up now. This will be my Sunday show for this week. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for listening. And thank you for putting up with this awful, terrible, ill-defined, completely conceptually incoherent, unsourced, unreferenced, unreliable piece of white supremacist propaganda, and the Karen who delivered it. Thank you guys. I've been Christy. You've been awesome, and we'll see each other again in a couple hours, or at least this time next week. So thanks for stopping by. Bye. Oh, I've got to hold on. I got to pull up my screen. I knew I wasn't ready to end the show. It felt like it was a little bit too much premature. So now I'm ready to go.